Good morning and welcome back to the National Center for Appropriate Technologies Soil Health Innovations Conference. Our theme this year is Soil for Water. My name is Steve Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of the National Center for Appropriate Technology. I hope you found yesterday's presentations informative and inspirational. There is so much we can do together to improve our soils and thus our agricultural systems, our food, and our planet. Tuesday, we began to explore the many dimensions of managing soil for water through regenerative farming and ranching. Here are a few highlights that I noted. Chris Grotigat, a farmer in the Texas Panhandle, shared how he is slowly replenishing the portion of the Ogallala Aquifer beneath his property through regenerative practices. Adam Chappell has improved his profitability by adopting several regenerative practices on his 7,500 acres of farmland, which has allowed for major cost savings in seeding, fertility, and pest management. David Montgomery made the connection between how we manage our soils and how we nourish our bodies, drawing a direct line between healthy soils and nutrient density, as indicated by the vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and omega-3 fatty acids in the food that is grown on these lands. Farmer and rancher Jimmy Emmons showed us vivid images of how healthy soils can capture, infiltrate, and retain water on farm fields in direct contrast with neighboring fields managed not so much for soil health. Shannon Phillips with the Oklahoma Conservation Commission helped us take these practices to scale by looking at how retaining more water in the soil can preclude the need for costly flood control reservoirs as we experience more extreme precipitation events due to a warming climate. And after we had a lively panel discussion in the Soil Health for Watershed session about rethinking the way we conduct cost-benefit analyses for social investments in soil health that produce multiple social benefits, such as reduced flood risk, cleaner water, and less maintenance and repair costs for downstream communities and infrastructure. Innovative ideas were put forward to break down the silos in which the benefits of soil health are considered in isolation. Today, we're going to examine a few more dimensions of the soil for water nexus. We'll hear about strategies to reversing desertification by working with nature. We'll learn about the concept of concentric ecology and its connections to soil and water health among indigenous communities. A session will examine how incorporating trees into agricultural systems using the principles of agroforestry can serve to irrigate croplands and pastures from below. And to wrap up the conference, we're going to learn more about NCAT's own Soil for Water program and its focus on peer-to-peer learning networks and the scalable power of connecting farmers and ranchers who are interested in regenerative practices. This final session will discuss and address questions and comments collected during the conference and offer resources and action steps for all who are curious, motivated, hopeful, inspired, and ultimately ready to explore the power and potential of the soil sponge. Yesterday, I mentioned that we've got some great door prizes that we'll be awarding to 4 people randomly selected who attend the final Soil for Water session. We will also give prizes to the 2 most active conference participants as indicated by the conference leaderboard, which you can learn all about on the Whova platform. I'm going to mention our door prizes, and even if you don't manage to land one of these prizes, I recommend any and all of these wonderful books and equipment. So our winners will be able to select from among these prizes. And they include a pair of nesting 6-inch infiltration rings from the Soil Carbon Coalition. And then we've got a series of books that you can select from. David Montgomery's Growing a Revolution, Bringing Our Soil Back to Life. Nicole Masters' For the Love of Soil. Dale Strickler's book, The Drought Resilient Farm. Kristen Olson's book, The Soil Will Save Us. Charles Massey, Call of the Reed Warbler. Fred Provenza's book, Nourishment, What Animals Can Teach Us About Rediscovering Our Nutritional Wisdom. And just about to come out and is available for pre-order is Liz Carlisle's new book, Healing Grounds, climate, justice, and the deep roots of regenerative farming. Before we get started with our keynote presentation from Alejandro Carrillo, I want to remind you to visit the exhibitor booths and also the community page in the Whova platform as a great place to interact with NCAT staff and other participants in discussion threads. Before you leave today, please take a moment to complete the survey about the conferences. It is just a few short questions that will greatly help us in planning future events. You'll find the survey under the Resources tab. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Linda Poole, a regenerative grazing specialist for NCAT and a sheep rancher in north central Montana. And Linda will introduce our next speaker. Over to you, Linda.
Thank you, Steve. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the keynote session for day 2 of the Soil Health Innovations Conference. We are so happy that you've chosen to spend your morning with us. As Steve said, I'm Linda Poole, a regenerative grazing specialist with the Soil for Water program, living in the traditional lands of the Assiniboine, Blackfeet, Crow, and Métis nations. These days, Malta, Montana is also the land of faulty internet connections. So I apologize now that my screen may be off for part of this session. Let me begin by reminding you to use the Whova Q&A feature to ask questions. We will hold questions to the end, but please type them in whenever you want. My colleague Lee Reinhardt will catch those questions and ask them later on in the presentation. This session is being recorded and will be made available to attendees through your Whova account later this month. And now it is my great honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, Alejandro Carrillo. Alejandro operates Las Damas Ranch, a 30,000-acre grass-based mixed livestock operation in a 10-inch rainfall area of Chihuahua, Mexico. He leads the nonprofit Pasticultores del Desierto. Apologies for not, I live next to Canada, not Mexico. Which provides ongoing education for cattle ranchers and promotes regenerative ranching across the world's desert grasslands. The group uses holistic planned grazing and adaptive livestock genetics to create profitable cattle operations while also restoring healthy landscapes and beneficial water cycles. Alejandro comes to this work as a 4th-generation rancher, but before coming back to his family ranch in 2004, he had a successful international career as a software engineer. He holds a Master's of Science degree in Technical Management from Johns Hopkins. And along with Alan Williams, Gabe Brown, and others, Alejandro is part of Understanding Ag, a powerful consulting team that helps producers restore soil, profits, farm, and futures. We at NCAT are so honored and deeply grateful that Alejandro has agreed to serve as an advisor for our Soil for Water project, because Alejandro is the real deal. He can sit a horse, he can put together a strong herd, he can manage a solid business. He restores health to his land by using a keen eye and a sharp pencil, and he's not afraid to think for himself. For those facing drought, Alejandro provides reason to hope that we can survive and even thrive. Many of us think about ranching for profit or ranching for our communities, but to me, it seems like Alejandro is ranching for rain. It looks to me like he grows rain clouds right along with grass and beef. How does he do that? That's what we're going to hear today. I have found one of the most important things that he has said to me is when it rains, it doesn't rain grass. Whenever and however that rain finally comes, if your land isn't ready to welcome and hold that water, even a good rain won't grow the grass that our livestock and our wildlife need. So let's hear how he does that. Alejandro, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks. That was a nice introduction. I'm gonna be sharing my screen now. Can you see my screen? Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to me to share with you the work that we've been doing in the Chihuahuan Desert. We are nested. Well, we're just to give you some context, we are in the Chihuahuan Desert on the the northern Mexico, pretty much nested in the high desert there. Our elevation is about 1,400, between 1,400 and 1,500 feet. It does snow at times, though. Used to snow every year, but not anymore. I think we're all being affected by the climate change. I wanted to share with you this picture of the ranch in summer. So that really brings, for me at least, it brings like peace of mind. And I really wanted to tell you that when we work with nature, nature actually gives a lot of abundance, a lot of grass, a lot of health, livestock, wildlife, microbiology, in general. And I also included this picture because it's my ranch in winter. So still there's not as beautiful as this green lush grass, but still we have some good grass and where cattle can eat it, and yeah, stockpiling grass, so we don't have to actually buy any external supplements for cows. One of our main goals when we started this journey of holistic management, regenerative principles, was to lower our inputs. Even though we may not be as cold as some parts in the US, we don't really have nice springs because we don't get the snow that we used to anymore. So our drought period could be 6, 7, 8 months. Compare the previous picture at the ranch with this picture nearby the ranch. But the same time of the year, winter, you can see how bad the degradation has taken place around that area, and people are actually not making any money with cattle. You can see there that some corn stacks and really not much for those cows to eat. Actually, we got some guests last week from the US to the ranch. So I took this temperature in the morning. It was probably like 10:30 a.m., about 10:30 a.m. And the soil was already at 113 Fahrenheit. Think about it, really the air temperature was like 65, and it was already twice as much as the air temperature at that point. Now we actually drive for another hour to my ranch, and then we use the thermometer as well to measure the temperature in the soil, at least on the surface, on the soil, and it was 75. I mean, think about it, folks. It's a 40-degree difference between those two locations. What does it do for the rainfall that we get? So remember, it's actually not the rainfall that we get, but what we do with that rainfall, how much we infiltrate, how much we keep. And in these pictures, I'm trying to tell you that skin in the soil is really important. I want to show you as well this graph, which a friend of mine actually shared with me the average precipitation of the ranch from the last 41 years. And that actually syncs up with the time that we've been spending at Las Damas, about 41 years exactly. I checked this data, which was got from remote sensing with my rain gauges, and it's minus plus 5%. So it's really not that, it's really very accurate. So what is this graph is telling me in my location is that we're going downwards. I mean, I have no doubt that we're getting less and less rain every year. Now, what really came to my surprise when I was looking at this data is that I do have recorded a 10.5 average rainfall in my ranch, but this data, the last 41 years, were showing me 11.5 average. So I thought, well, what's going on? So I split this data in two, this graph in two. So in the first 20 years that we got the ranch, we were getting 12.5. On the last 20 years, we're getting 10.5. So it's really critical that for us to change the way we manage our land, because the trend is going downwards. So it's really nowadays much more important to see what we can do with the rain. To actually do a more effective rainfall. The other thing that you can notice on this graph is that the last two worst droughts were on the last pretty much 10 years. From 1981 to 2001, we never got any year below 8 inches. Now, in the last 10 years, we got 2 events of 5 inches. Now, something also I want to share with you is in 2011, on the first event on the at the ranch, on the first big drought event, we have to pull pretty much all the cows out of the ranch, the 500 cows out of the ranch, because it could not support pretty much any cows. Now, in 2020, we again got less than 5 inches, and we were able to sustain 500 cows of the ranch with pretty much no inputs. So that really makes a difference. The way you manage, it really makes a big difference how resilient you become. This is a rainfall pattern. As you can see, we are really reliant on 3 months of rain. So what we do there is trying to stockpile grass for us to be able to take or herd all the way from the last days of October all the way through August. Because as Linda said, why don't we consider July? Because it doesn't rain grass. We have to wait to get that stockpile, that reserve of grass ready for another month after the rains. I also wanted to share with you this picture taken a little bit more than 10 years ago. Those were typical winters, very tough winters. We have to feed our cows for many months. The cost of carrying a cow was pretty high at that time. And now this is how the ranch looked in winter. I sometimes joke here because, a lot of literature says, well, creosote doesn't allow the grass to grow. But the good thing is that this grass doesn't know how to read the books. So we are actually focused on growing more grass, on growing more grass. We don't really care about the woody plants around the plants. Nature will take care of those woody plants, or what we call those invasive woody plants. Compare that to this picture of a neighboring property where, yes, they do have grass, but also we need to take into account the quality of the grass. For me, that grass is of very little use because it's mostly oxidized. It doesn't help feed the microbiology. It doesn't help feed the cows. It doesn't help feed the wildlife. So we really need to be very observant to see if the management we have is actually improving the health of the grass, not only the biomass, but the health of the grass. So always my message to ranchers is, if you tell me that you are about the same as 10 years ago, well, I don't know about that. We're leading with nature, and nature is very dynamic. So most likely you're better or you're worse based on your management, but we are never stay still. Let's continue with the context. This is the ranch. It does have all kind of terrains from the typical of the Chihuahuan Desert, a mountain range, some malpais of these volcanic hills, and also flat land. It's a 30,000 acre ranch. We are running 550 cows and 200 sheep. There, I'm going to stop there because our plan, just keep in mind that when I joined the ranch, my dad was running 150 cows on the whole acreage and around 100 cows on a lease operation. But that's just part of the story, because the cost of running a cow was much higher. It wasn't only that he was running less cows. Now our plans for the future is to bump it up that 550 cows to 1,200 cows. And we're working on our water infrastructure to support a little bit more than twice that we're running. And those 200 sheep, I'm expecting to have 500 sheep as well. Our ranch is actually a multi-species ranch. We're also running donkeys and saddle and mares with the herd. We're always striving to run just one big herd and with everything on it. Our average rainfall on the last 4 years has been 8 inches. And we use no inputs but sea salt year round. We haven't used any chemical, mechanical, seeding, or irrigation to restore native grasslands. And the main tool we have is cows rationally managed. Why I put the word rationally? Because it's really a thinking process. I usually tell people that it's more art than science what we do. And we are not the only ones doing the work there. I mean, there's already more than 2 million acres in northern Mexico and some parts of Mexico doing these regenerative practices. Now, let me take you to a virtual tour of the ranch so you understand some of the progress we have made at the ranch. This is a 40-mile road that we have to go through their road from the highway. And this is a property nearby my property. At that point in time, we have 6 inches of rain. It was most likely in August. And we are 6 inches of rain from January to August. And that's how it looked like. If you see here, actually the water cycle is broken. Now we just drive a little bit more to our ranch in 10 more minutes. And now you see the difference here, how we are actually doing more effective rainfall and growing more grass. So that's, for us, is one of the most important things that we do as ranchers to fix the water cycle. This is another day in spring. Remember, our springs are not like green, nice springs. They are more dry springs. But even though you can see on the upper left, the first property that I'm passing by going to my ranch is continuous grazing. I mean, they never move the cows, and you see the consequences there. Even the mesquites are dying. And then, sorry, let me go back a little bit. Okay. Now, on the upper right, you'll see another ranch, which is practicing rotational grazing. And I sometimes have to call that rotational overgrazing, because cows are staying too long on big pastures, are rotated every month. And what happened on that approach is that you will have a lot of grass that is being undergrazed, like this tobosa grass, and that's why it's getting oxidized. And some of the better species, like side oats or grama grass, has been overgrazed and wiped out as well. At the bottom of this slide is my ranch on the same day, and my ranch actually has a better looking colors of grass, and the mesquites are flourishing. So when you graze properly, you will actually help and support all the plant species. This is another comparison between my ranch on the inner side and the neighbor's ranch on the outer side. This is a spring as well. So, and that's one of the reasons why we work towards having more perennials, because we will not do much if we only have weeds or annuals to on rangeland, to be able to get the cows with minimals or no supplements for 9-10 months of the dry period that we have. So you can see that my grass is greening up and my neighbor's ranch is not. And you may say, well, Alejandro, that's maybe because you're running fewer cows than your neighbor. Well, in this particular case, I'm running 4 times more cattle per acre than my neighbor. So it really doesn't matter how many cows you have. It's really more important how you manage those cows. I like this picture because remember, there's really not such thing as path grass or something like that. So we are very keen on observing when we are grazing through the years that our grass is the same species of grass, which this is a tobosa grass, very common in the Chihuahuan Desert. Our grass should have more leaves and less stems. I mean, should have a better solar panel. The more you improve your soil biology, the grasses will create more leaves and less stems. On the left side, you can see my tobosa grass with more leaves in winter. And that's what really cows like to eat, leaves. On the right side is a property nearby on the same tobosa grass, but a completely different shape. So think about who is going to be who's going to be feeding the cows better, or who's has to provide some inputs to go on in winter. So that's very important. The leaf to stem ratio that on the grasses as you work them properly. This is a close up of the previous pictures. On the left side is neighboring grass, and on the right side is my grass. So see how actually unhealthy and how poor and how exposed is a perennial grass on the left side. Very shallow roots, a lot of oxidized material, and cows or even the donkeys around, they may be able to pull that grass with the whole roots. My grass on the right is actually has very deep roots and not much oxidized material. So that could actually feed my cows and all the animals that were running on the ranch. I like these pictures because they seems to be like a changing season, but it's not. Actually, I take this picture on the same day, a neighboring property and my property. So you can see the big difference that it does make the grazing management. I mean, this holistic regenerative management on the ranches with very little precipitation. It may be that the folk on the left may be still crying for more rain, but actually what we need to do is to change first our management and then try to take advantage of every drop that we have at the ranch. This is one of the few pictures that I, as a rancher, have taken to a good reference on the same spot. So you can see, for example, I got a bare spot here back in 2015. I highlighted at the top the inches that I got at that time. So I see a little bit of weeds, and these are positive because weeds and annuals will build the soil that will actually provide the environment for perennials to actually come up. You see on the back what we call the Elephant Butte at the ranch. It's a mountain range at the ranch, just for reference. Then we jump 3 years after. Now, 3 years after, you can see that now we're growing a little bit more perennials and more weeds on that bare patch with 9 inches of precipitation in 2018. Then we got 10, 5, and in 3 years, last year, this is how that same spot looked like. So definitely we are actually going on the right succession path there. From bare ground to weeds to annuals to perennials. So what is it really going on at the ranch with just 10 inches precipitation? Well, actually there's more. For example, we do believe, and we actually can have some of the proof that the ranchers that are under regenerative principles in Chihuahua are getting extra rain. But don't get me wrong, that just exactly at the same spot of the ranch is within defensive training. Also, neighboring properties are getting extra rain. That they are infiltrating more water, well, that's a different thing. For example, this picture, quite a very, at times controversial and at times a very strong message there, because this is not in my ranch, it's a ranch nearby, where on the left side, they're doing this rechain grazing, on the right side, a continuous grazing. And you can see the rain is falling there. But I'm not saying that the rain will fall exactly within the fence, but we are providing the right environment for the rain to fall. Remember that 40% of the rain that falls inland, we're supposed to create that rain. We're supposed to promote that rain. The other 60% come from the sea. Talking about effective rainfall, I did a quick test at the ranch on a bare spot and on a spot that we've been doing more intensive grazing, long rest periods. And just the difference on those two spots was like 16 inches. The difference was 16 inches per of infiltration rate per hour, based on the NRCA tables. Think about for a moment, if we extrapolate those 16 inches by 30,000 acres, we could fulfill the needs of a 100,000 town population for a full year. So when they say, well, you know, you're a cattle rancher, you're taking too much water to produce a pound or a kilo. Well, we have to see this as in a more holistic view of we as ranchers, what we're doing, what are the benefits, ecological benefits we're providing for the environment. How about the soil engineers? I love them. So one of the first things we go when we go to a ranch and we are looking for, we look at the cow pies. I can tell you that this particular cow pie is really not helping much. I mean, we don't want to see our cow pies getting oxidized. We want the cow pies, the majority of the cow pies, to get into the soil. What happened on this particular property? Most likely they're using ivermectin or some other toxics, so they're killing those, what I call those soil engineers. Compare that to one of the cow pies in my ranch worked by the dung beetles. We use no chemicals at all. So we have a big population of dung beetles, and they're increasing not only in numbers, but on number of species. Different species are coming in. This is the kind of work that the dung beetles do. This is a side view. So you can see that they really put a lot of that cow pie, in the majority of that cow pie, that manure into the soil. And this is a cow pie that was worked from last year. And now you can see, instead of you seeing an oxidized cow pie, you see that microclimate coming up with some grass. So we are actually creating multiple several microclimates with a cow pie that has been worked with by the dung beetles. Just to give you some numbers, actually, the dung beetles could move 12 tons of soil per acre per day on 100,000 pounds density. It's pretty amazing. Not only how much they can put into the soil, how much manure, but also how much soil they can move in our ranches or aerate. Now we try to mimic at any cost nature. That's what we're trying to actually keep, just as few herds as possible and as dense as possible, as with a high density as possible. And we try not to fight nature. So in this particular picture, you see a mesquite that is dying. I mean, it's dying. The grass is taking over the mesquite. The perennial grasses are taking over the mesquite. why would I spend money find that mesquite if nature it will take eventually care of? I do believe that nature will throw some other kind of trees that will support more the new ratio of fungal bacteria and the more moisture that the grass is keeping. But right now, it seems like we're going to end up with just grasslands. See another picture of mesquites, smaller mesquites dying among the grass. And I'm not the only one experiencing this. I mean, there are many ranchers in northern Mexico actually experiencing with cholla cactus or cat's claw woody plants dying among the grasses. So what's going on? I mean, let's think about it. In nature, really nothing gets wasted. So if the mesquite is dying, then nature has a way to convert that mesquite into something useful for the soil. Because I don't know if you know, folks, but mesquite is a legume. So it's actually fixing some nitrogen. So we were thinking about, so what's going to happen if we don't have the mesquite? What's going to happen with the shade? What's going to happen with that nitrogen? Well, if we go back about the shade, if we go back to that thermometer, we're not going to have any more those over 120 Fahrenheit degree temperatures in the soil. We're going to have a more template, a more moderate temperature. Plus, then the question is, who's going to do the work for the replacing the mesquite with the nitrogen? Well, we start seeing some very interesting things. For example, you can see on the upper right picture, there's a beetle, not a dung beetle, but a beetle pruning the branches when the mesquite is dying and the process of dying. So those branches just fall off and they are taken by the termites and they are putting into the soil. The incredible thing is termites are the richest nitrogen fixers of all the insects. They have a very rich microbiology in their tummies. So it's pretty amazing how nature actually replaces what was out there with something else. And remember, folks, as long as we don't kill them, they're going to help us regenerate our soils. Some people may say, well, Alejandro, if you have oxidized grass, why don't you put a fire there to get rid of the oxidized grass? Now, I mean, we have not used fire at all to restore our grasslands, but now we're realizing that as we can keep more moisture into the soil, we are allowing the termites to actually take unoxidized grass, as this picture. It's pretty amazing what nature is doing now. Now, talking about more into detail of how we approach a ranch is usually we think about, oh, if I have a ranch and I have grass here and bare ground there, then I should start working on the bare ground because I don't like to see that. Reality is, if you really want to make a better return on investment, meaning your money and your time, you better start where you already have grass. Because as you see in some of these pictures, you can actually drastically improve the quality of that grass, which will allow you to lower your inputs and increase your cattle numbers. Even if you just improve the grass that's already there without even taking care of the bare ground. So this is the ranch in different colors. So we try to prioritize the areas that, for example, here, the green areas have already some grass. The pink areas are the following ones that have patches of grass. And then the red areas are really a lot of bare ground. So if I were going to invest and intensify my grazing, I will intensify my grazing on the green areas. And then I will make paddocks bigger on the pink ones and bigger on the yellow ones. And that will allow me actually to get faster results if I concentrate on the best areas first, and then I keep moving into the more degraded, more expensive to develop areas. I leave those for the end. I want to share with you some examples of our fence. For example, we have used this H brace, all insulated. One tensile wire, that's enough for us to control the cows. And this is a insulated post as well. So on that particular approach, everything is insulated. So really very low maintenance fence, electric fence. We do also use polywire to cross fence. When we have a lot of grass, we start cross fencing with no back fence to the water. It really doesn't matter if the cows. I mean, when you have the cows as a mob, they will not actually be interested on grazing again where they already graze. This is a different approach we have for our corner posts. It's a more simplistic approach. It does use metal and insulators. Actually, that insulator did not work for two reasons. I mean, one is that it was really not a very good quality insulator. And the second one is because we do work with the bird organizations, caring for the birds that are migrating from northern US, southern Canada, and they pass the winter in the Chihuahuan Desert. And it happened that, well, one hummingbird thought that that insulator was a flower and, well, just suddenly disappeared. So we tried to use insulators, the black or green color instead of these more bright colors. That works together with these T-posts with an insulator. It's been working nice. I mean, I had no complaints with that approach as well. This is how we fence our mountain range. We use polywire, we use solar energizer with a solar energizer. And actually our paddocks or pastures are a little bit bigger than on the flat land. And somehow cows are able to graze pretty evenly. Remember that at the ranch, in our context, we don't take half and leave half. We try to do a more deeper grazing as long as we can actually keep the cows, the majority of the cows in good body condition. On the well-being of the cows is, for us, the well-being of the cows is always more important than their soil building capabilities. And this is more like an art than a science to tell you that, yeah, we want the cows, we move the cows daily or sometimes twice a day. But when we go in the morning, we want to make sure that all the cows are full and not too excited to move. And so, well, that's how we graze here on the Sierra. Or my people is pretty creative. For example, you can see here how they pull that polywire down with a string on a rock. And how creative they are to actually use these natural corner posts. If anyone is interested, well, you know, we are exporting these corner posts to the US. Just to show you also water infrastructure, we have some cement water troughs that are shared with multiple paddocks. Let's say this particular water trough water 8 paddocks, and we build alleys with polywire so cows can access this water point without grazing all the paddocks. We also have some water tanks where we place this at the center of the mountain range, and then we also pump water even to a higher ground from this water tank. And we do also use portable water troughs. These portable water troughs allow us to actually get the water closer to the herd, and that will reduce our time of building alleys or using polywire. Remember that the closer the water to your cows, the less pressure they're gonna be putting on your water system. Because cows, when they got the water close, they go in small groups and they drink several times per day instead of just one big herd going to the water all at once. This is the kind of work that our cattle do at the mountain range. If you see, everything was, they move a lot of, I mean, the animal impact was just pretty amazing with the hooves, and they graze deep all these grasses. Now, what happened is this considered like overgrazing? Well, for us, it's not, because it's a short time. They take a lot of that material, but then it comes the long rest periods. Or rest periods are at least a full year. That's what really allow all the species cool season, because we do also have cool season grasses at this era, and warm seasons to express themselves and put a seed head. This is how that grass looked like after it was grazed. And then I want to actually throw you here an example of, also from Chihuahua, of a friend of mine was involved on this project of regenerating a mine, an open pit mine. So that's how that open pit mine looked like when the owner of this mine said, well, let's give it a try with your grazing management. So they put a little bit of dirt on top of the gravel. Then they bring the cows on portable corrals, and they hold the water. They actually inoculated some microbiology. They put some seeds on the feeder, and they pretty much put bales on it. That's a winter at the mountain range in Chihuahua. Well, they're using polywire as well, not only these portable panels. And that's the result. I mean, on the left side, you can see how the cows actually work those particular spots. And on that particular place, they get probably about 25 inches per year. And now you see the response within the first year of how that beautiful grass just came up after that animal impact and all those additions to it. It's just comparing a piece of ground that was built by the cows versus the original gravel that they have. So if these guys can change the grass, then I think we can pretty much change everything, folks. This is how the place looked like on the second year. I mean, no, actually it wasn't the first year, but after during the growing season. A top view. Now, something we usually don't talk much about is the genetics. And let me tell you, folks, genetics are really key to this, because we need the cows to help us. What if we have high maintenance, what we call pencil gut, not much fleshing cows, big cows? They will not be helping us. I mean, that could actually make you fail in this regenerative path, having this. But we always have good genetics in any herd. So what we do at the ranch is we select the bulls from within our herd, from our top 10% cows. Cows are always maintaining good body condition through the year. They have a shiny coat, and that little bull, calf bull, looks like a little bull, actually. And we keep cooling cows year round, or the bottom 20%. It doesn't matter the time of the year. We compare among their peers, and we are acting at that point as a predator. Before we move the cows, we actually take the time to take a look at the poor performers, and then just hold on, please, guys. The poor performers, and And we actually cull them. I mean, it doesn't matter really anything. We look at the hair growth, we look at the fertility and the body condition and compare that to the peers. So we're constantly actually cleaning the herd. So year around culling for on the herd. And at that time, we're acting as a predator. When we move the cows, we act as a shepherd because they follow us. They trust us that we're gonna take them to a better spot. Now, just comparing, remember folks, I'm not talking anything about specific breeds. I think there's more difference nowadays within a breed than among breeds. In this case, we have a herd of Red Angus, same conditions, and it's not in my ranch, it's in a different ranch. But you can see that the cow on the left was the one that got pregnant, and the cow on the right was the one that actually got open. Just visually, we can say that we don't want that cow on the right side. We don't wait, folks, to actually palpate the cows to get rid of them. We actually get rid of that cow just right away. This is an example of a nice Hereford bull, pure grass-based bull. From a closed herd, this particular herd in Mexico has been closed for 60 years. And a lot of us use these Hereford bulls in our herds to actually improve that fleshing ability and that fat that the cows need to store before getting into the dry or winter season. This is a cow from the same ranch. In this ranch also, there's really no supplementation at all. This is a cow from a friend of mine. He pushed that hard. I mean, I think he started culling like a 40% per year. Now he has these very nice low maintenance cows that they survive, but whatever the ranch offers. This is a small video of my ranch. The cow on her heifer. Heifer is about the same size of the cow. And my cows learn to eat this cactus. I don't burn the spines. I mean, they scratch that pad against the soil and then just eat it. So we're trying to actually ask the cows to take full advantage of what the ranch is offering. This is how it looked like after the cows have grazed that prickly pear cactus. Now, just a summary for you folks. I'm not sure how we're doing with the time, but let me try to wrap up here. The difference between conventional and regenerative ranching. Conventional and regenerative, we actually build a robust water distribution system. You cannot do planning if you don't have a reliable water system. Otherwise, the water is going to control your movement. And you have to make sure that you have the water across the ranch. I'm not saying on every paddock, but on a close by, so you can actually do a good planning and you can adapt to the conditions. And we are very keen into continuous education. Actually, something like today, you know, we're learning. We've been traveling across many countries and many continents, trying to educate ourselves, talking to the best ranchers that we consider, and also North America, South America, Africa, wherever they are, and then we bring them here. We actually try to get rid of the word killing and competition. Actually, for us, is whatever we will do, whatever it takes to promote life, and we know that nature it actually brings a lot of collaboration between living organisms. Our approach is actually a more intensive grazing. When I say intensive grazing, in my context, I'm talking about 20,000, 40,000, 60,000 pounds per acre. Don't think about 200. At times we may do that just to bring some disruption into the system. And for us, it's kind of relative, those densities, because if we put our cattle into a paddock that has patchy grass, what is the real density there? It's hard to actually determine the density when they're actually only grazing just a few spots within the paddock. So that's why your observation is really key here, observing when the cows are done and then move on. We're talking about multiple paddocks. Last year we got an average of 10.5 inches or average finally. And now we are actually running the cows across 700 paddocks now, because we have to split the paddocks because there's so much grass. We're talking about the long rest periods, at least 12 months, or we're now jumping to 12 months. I mean, compared to the more conventional fewer pastures, short rest periods. See, I don't know why we have the tendency as ranchers to actually try to eat the grass on a vegetative stage. We're losing big time there, folks, because we're giving too much protein to our cows. And then if you are seeing a loose manure, then that will become a problem eventually because of the accumulation of ammonia, and then that potentially could be show up as a pink eye or something. So we prefer to give the cows a more balanced diet between dry and green. We strive to have one herd in one place. We are, instead of multiple herds across the whole ranch, we use multiple species. We actually bought last year a few donkeys. And actually, many people buy the donkeys because of protection, but actually our main goal for donkeys is to eat something that the cows were not eating, because they can actually do well on a lower quality grass than cows. And I do prefer to have grasses that are not eaten by cows, eaten by donkeys as a manure, instead of the grass just standing there. The difference is, for example, also is we don't like really those pamper animals requiring high inputs. And that's why we do ongoing selection and culling. And we raise our own bulls, and we keep all our heifers. We don't buy bulls and we don't replace heifers. Why would I be investing my time observing what's the best cows and what are the worst if I keep throwing into my ranch this variation in genetics and also selling my heifers? We do sell hard on the cow side, I mean, but not on the heifer side. Unless there's really something wrong with the heifer, we will sell it. And then we cow during the warm growing season. And just keep in mind, I'm not saying we cow during the rainy season. We used to cow during the rainy season, but now that we have a lot of stockpile, that allow us to cow during the warm growing season. Well, if anyone wants this very flexible solar panel, then we don't sell them. But see, the point here, the message is that guy actually did not have a way or road, but he has the intention to make it work. So we all make mistakes, guys, but if we got the goal to make this work, we will do it. Thank you very much, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. That was everything that we had hoped for in a presentation. It's so inspiring, and also gives us a lot of information that we can use. I think if you would, there you go. Now we can see you. Lee Reinhardt has been monitoring the Q&A box in Whova, and he'll be giving us some questions here shortly. But I'd like to start by just reflecting. Yesterday, Jimmy Emmons used the phrase whiplash weather. And man, that really resonated with me, because in 1 year, you can have a polar vortex and a heat dome. You can have a flood and a drought and a wildfire all in the same year. And it's just, you know, how do you manage when we've got such drama in our weather. And so I wondered, Alejandro, if you could talk with us about specifically, how do we go about making our ranches more resilient in this time of changing temperatures, lack of water, too much water? What's your advice for us?
Yeah, we did experience the same issues when we started. We were actually like in a constant drought. It did not matter how much we got. I remember the first year that I joined the ranch back in 2004, we got 20 inches of rain. And you know what I did with that? Really not much. I mean, there was a lot of degradation, not much grass grew. And I think we had the potential to actually change things. I mean, we are trying to work also with neighbors, because I know that I already have, and it's pretty hard, you know, to work with neighbors because of whatever you throw on the table. But I have, out of my 4 neighbors, I have 2 neighbors are quite interested on this. They are being benefited by the microclimate that we have created. And it's not only, see, because remember, the first line of defense for retaining or moisture in the soil and temperatures is not even the skin in soil, it's the clouds. So we have the potential, we grow more vegetation, more quality vegetation. I mean, we extend the green season of the grass, that will mean more photosynthesis along the year, and that will mean more aggregates in the soil and better infiltration and more effective rainfall and more clouds in the, and then we can expand that by working with in the region or with your neighbors. Then we will be in a much better shape to deal, because we're still within North America, let's say, and we're all affected by that. But at least our ranches will be more robust and more resilient to deal with this crazy weather that we have nowadays.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And for your example, can't say enough about that. Lee, do you have some questions from the audience?
Yeah, Linda, we do. A lot of questions have come in, and I hope we have time to answer all of them. And I even have a question for myself that I'd like to ask Alejandro as well. So the first one deals with the size of the paddocks and the fencing. I know that Alejandro went through, you know, a good session here with fencing types, but what are the size of the paddocks that you're rotating through? And I'll also ask, what is the average grazing period in those paddocks?
Yeah, Lee. On the flat land, we actually come up with the average is about 30 acre. No, hold on. I gotta change from hectares to acres. So it's about 50 acre paddocks. Now, if you actually do all your paddocks about the same size, then you're not playing anymore with the size of the paddock, but you're actually playing with the time that the cows are going to spend on those paddocks. Now, the beauty of what we do is you grow more grass, more. It's like a multidimensional thing with the grass, is more bigger grasses, more canopy, but also better quality of the grasses. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't expand that basal cover and improve just the quality, that will actually hold more cows. So we are adjusting every year. We adjust on that where we have those fixed paddocks, and they are like long strips where we can cross fence, like a 600 feet wide by 3,000 feet long. So that allows us actually to cross fence with polybar. So if you have a lot of grass, then you do multiple paddocks. So for example, in my case, I want to move daily. So if I want to move daily, then you learn by observing, you know, I mean, you learn by observing, and I mean, there's other ways to measure the amount, but a lot of the tools we have to determine the dry matter is actually for you to train your eye. So for example, at the mountain range, we do try to size the paddock for a 1 day. That's different than on the flatland. So with polybar, we try, and when we cross fence, that's when we apply the different principles, which is try to size the paddock, for example, in our case, for 1 day for 700 animal units. But in fixed paddocks, play with the time. I don't know if I explain myself.
Yes, absolutely. That makes an awful lot of sense. Thank you. Let's move on to some other questions. Can you talk about your experiences moving away from ivermectin, and how did that work for your operation?
Yes, Lee. When I joined the ranch, we were big time fighting nature. I mean, we were fighting local weed. We were actually putting ivermectin and some other toxics because somehow our cows were always with ticks, and they were getting crazy with that local weed, and the horses as well. But reality is that our grass was in a very poor shape. So I think that a lot of issues we have at the beginning was because the grasses were actually dying, were very poor. We were not able to break that constant drought as we were improving the grasses, because remember, you're going to be working in two sides. One side is on your grazing management, which will improve the nutrition of your cows. And something what we never did before as well was selecting and culling. We keep buying bulls from, I mean, they were not really that bad bulls, but your ranch is unique. I mean, you cannot expect to buy an animal and that will fit into your environment. There's no way for us to save that time. I mean, you have to invest the time to actually say, okay, yeah, I'm buying bull from these guys, it's working nice, but also I want to leave a few bulls on my own just to compare to a certain time where I say, okay, now my bulls are better than what I'm buying, then you better keep your bulls, because every situation is unique and your genetics have to be unique to you. So you work on your grazing management to improve the nutrition of your cows, and on the other side, you work on your genetics to develop. I mean, for example, if I were to have Hereford or Angus, those will not be any more Angus cows in my ranch. They will be Las Damas Angus, because they work perfectly for my management and the nutritional level of my grass and so on. And my densities, you know, is something that is, and that will actually allow us to start getting rid of a lot of crutches. I mean, on the cattle, and also the grass is very aggressive. It will take over a lot of toxic plants. I don't know if you have noticed, but the more degraded the land, the more toxic plants and the more thorns and spines. I mean, that we don't are speaking or observing the same language as nature. Nature is telling us, hey guys, you're not doing a good job. I'm gonna keep throwing a lot of stuff on you. If you keep killing them, I'm gonna kick your ass out of this. So let's try to learn to speak the language of nature.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. We've had a couple of questions dealing with reseeding. And so what are your thoughts on invasive perennial grasses? The asker mentions buffalo grass, Lehman's love grass, things like that. What if the site is so degraded that it doesn't have seed sources for desirable forage species? Do you ever do any reseeding?
No, well, I have to actually, I mean, in the answers, you really need to see also the context. In northern Mexico, there was very little farming for many, many, many years. I don't know. It was something because the Spaniards probably were shepherds and the English were more farmers. So we have really seen a lot of difference on a land that was farmed and a land that was just like degraded by cattle. The land that we have in northern Mexico that was degraded by the continuous grazing of cattle, that land still has a very good seed bank below that hard pan. So it's really for us to create the conditions. Even if you just see bare ground, there will be seed down there. I mean, but nature is pretty smart and it's gonna just push the right bottoms, because I have seen people going to my ranch and they say, oh, Alejandro, I'm gonna take this green sprangle top, 7 feet tall grass, beautiful grass. Well, it doesn't work that way. I mean, you have to follow the same principles in regenerative agriculture, where, okay, nature is gonna first give you these weeds and then some annuals, small annuals, and then mid-size, and then big annuals, and then some perennials. So you have to be patient by observing that nature is trying to fix your soil, and it will throw exactly the same amounts for you to go towards a perennial base, which is what we're actually is our goal, to have a diverse set of perennial base. Where there's farmland, it's going to take you longer because of all the toxics and all the tillage. And I have a few of the dry land at the ranch, and it's taking me much longer, like 3 or 4 times under the same management. But I haven't really do any seeding. I mean, the seed was there. I work for what I want. I don't fight. I respect the rest periods I really love long rest periods because that allow, for example, my 7 feet tall grasses to actually express themselves. When I was rotating multiple times per year, I never see those guys. Most likely I were overgrazing those guys.
Thank you. Let's talk about water for a second. Are you using groundwater? And if so, how deep is the aquifer?
Yes, our system is based on our wells. The average well is about 450, I think, yeah, about 400 feet deep. And we have 6 wells across the ranch. We've been moving away from diesel because we're in the middle of nowhere. So we actually like solar systems. And we have, in some parts, the main line is 3-inch. I mean, we're preparing to get the herd twice as much. But right now, with the herd that we have, 700 animal units with 2-inch, we're doing well, gravity. And yeah, I mean, we used to rely on ponds. Remember, we're in the desert, very little precipitation. So yeah, our ponds were full when I joined the ranch because really nothing stopped the water. When you start growing more grass and you start getting more aggregates and more air in the soil, you're going to start infiltrating more water, and your ponds are not going to be full anymore. Mm-hmm. So you have to see that beforehand, saying, I better build some water infrastructure, reliable water infrastructure, to make sure that I can increase. One of the most difficult things on this management is for you to believe that you can triplicate or quadruplicate your herd.
Thank you. Linda, how are we doing on time?
We're good. We can go for another 10 minutes with our questions.
Okay, very good. So a question that I have, I really appreciated the what was happening with the old mine ground, right? And transitioning that by placing cattle on there and bringing in organic matter and feeding seed and such like that. But I wonder if you could speak, Alejandro, to what you're doing on the really desert areas that you have to go in and graze differently than the areas that are more vegetated. Where do you start whenever you go into these mountainous regions and there's not a lot of grass? Let's say someone buys a ranch and it's all desert, right? I mean, well, how do you get that animal impact, and are you putting any inputs in there in order to get the system primed?
Well, I don't work with that people. No, just kidding. No, actually, most ranchers still have some grass out there. It's just that most likely they don't have water. I mean, the most sacrifice areas is where they have the water. And obviously most ranchers have these large pastures. So there's still grass out there. So we always try to find the spots that still have some grass on it and then working out of there. And then one of the first things you can do immediately is to fence that out and provide a full year of rest. Now remember, yeah, because the grass is pretty short because of the cows are just hanging in there and then just overgrazing. And if you just provide like a full year of period, like if you were going to sell the whole herd, but obviously you just fencing that out, that will provide. We actually usually minimize a couple of things when we're doing this. We minimize the importance of genetics and we minimize the power of long rest periods. And you may say, well, yeah, Alejandro, because you are actually on a very low precipitation. Well, one of my colleagues, Chenyu, he's in Kansas with 40 inches. He came down to the ranch and he said, oh, I'm gonna try these long rest periods in Kansas in a 40-inch precipitation. And he actually, on the first year, he found 5 new species of wheat and grasses.
Wow.
Think about the power of rest. Now we combine that power of rest with a more deeper grazing, because it doesn't work if just take half, at least in our part of the world. If you just take half and you try to combine that with long rest periods, all the grass is gonna get oxidized. And yeah, so that's why we also try to prioritize areas, but in a very limited cases where there's really nothing to grow, then what we do is we do bale grazing. We throw bales there, we let the cows, we don't see it, remember, because we're not, most of the time, we're not working with former farmland, but there's still, I mean, there's still some weeds and everything. I mean, whatever grows there is like a benefit now. You're on the right track, but those are like very extreme cases. We try to avoid that because it's more costly, but it's a useful tool.
Thank you. And that kind of leads into the next question too, because you're talking about the return of various grasses and plants. One of our questions had to do with impacting other species. It was like Bolson tortoise was mentioned in one of the questions. How's grazing impacting animals like that? And also, are you seeing more species and endangered species or threatened species, whether they're plant or animal, returning to the rangeland because of your practices?
Yeah, we work, well, to begin with, we love tortoise. We had the desert box tortoise at the ranch. Their population just exploded. Just exploded because those tortoise actually eat tobosa grass. And remember that we're creating a more moisture environment. Remember that we're lowering the temperature. Think about what the effect it does have, not only on our domestic animals, but on the wildlife, having a 75-degree in summer versus 150-degree in summer. That will burn those desert box tortoise. So we have an explosion of tortoise. I mean, just amazing. The other day, my neighbor said, oh, have you seen that? I haven't seen tortoise in my ranch. Oh my God, I have hundreds of them, thanks to the management. We also work with the bird organizations, American Bird Conservancy, Bird Conservancy of the Rockies, Audubon, and they have this hard data of the transects, and they're pretty happy at what we're doing. This a lot of endangered migratory birds that they're focused on, and yeah, they're pretty happy with the work of the ranchers applying these principles, because first of all, we're giving protection to those birds. How that little bird will get protected if there's spur ground? I mean, just impossible. Or just annual or weeds that with the strong winds they will go away. And now, and then that ties back to the quality of the grass. Then actually we're improving the quality of the seeds for those birds. So we're excited about those win-win-win situations that this is bringing, not only providing a better habitat and wildlife for wildlife, but also the whole thing. I mean, the whole communities, the whole profitability of the ranch, the resilience for weather events, and so on.
And have you seen any different plant species kind of show up because of your management?
Yeah, actually, when we start back in 2007, we had pretty much 3 main species: alkaline, tobosa, and I don't remember what else. Now we have more than 50 species of perennial grasses, not counting the weeds and not counting the annual grasses. Yeah, no, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, there's no doubt that taking a regenerative mindset and working with nature and instead of the competition aspect and killing, like you mentioned earlier, you know, how we can see species return and you know, build soil health and such, and everything from the ground up. And seeing those species, those wildlife species, particularly in the grasses and plants, come back, that's an indicator you're doing something right. I've heard that several times, and I totally believe that. Let me see if there's any more questions. There's one question here. Do you have any experience with ranching in Mediterranean climates where there's no rain in the summer?
Okay, so there's no rain in the summer, but there's rain in winter, like in California, you mean? Something like that? Or we want to go to Italy, probably, right? Perhaps.
California is probably the closest Mediterranean climate we have here. So.
I think the same principles apply. I think one of our goals is extending the green season. For example, who would think that I could have green grasses in the middle of a drought? Who would think that Gay Brown in North Dakota could have some green grass in the middle of winter? So the idea here is to extend. I remember my tobosa grass was green only during the rainy season. So actually the tobosa grass, because it was sick, my tobosa grass was sick, it was behaving like an annual grass, only green during the rainy season. And that's, unfortunately, that's our perception right now. I mean, because we haven't really seen the potential of a perennial pasture land. We are relying too much on irrigated pastures because people having those that pasture land, that native grasslands, they haven't really seen the potential and the low cost pound to put a pound if you base your operation mostly on a perennial based rainfall. So yeah, the bottom line here is we're trying to extend the green season, and that will allow us to actually have good quality forage year round, whether your rain gets in winter or in summer. Really, that doesn't matter much. Yep.
So
How are we doing, Linda?
I was hoping you were almost out of questions so I could ask one.
Go ahead. It's all you.
Good. Well, I'm so excited about, you know, the first order consequences of what you're doing are great, but I'm so excited about the second order because, I mean, you just talked about how you're producing nutrient dense food for grassland birds as well as beef that people are going to eat. And I think that that's great. And the way that you're capturing and holding the water in your soil is helping your community deal with drought and giving us ideas too about, you know, if you're holding your water, you're not shunting it off and creating a flood and water quality problems for people downstream. So I'm so excited about that. And what I really want to know, because you travel the world talking with people about these issues, about regreening deserts by using livestock. Yesterday, David Montgomery told us that about 3% of farmers are using regenerative practices now. Seems like a really low number, but he said it's ramping up really quickly. And I think it needs to ramp up quickly, not just for climate, but for the ranching communities that I love and for water quality. And I wonder, you know, what's your feeling? What's your temperature? What's the pulse that you take on regenerative agriculture? And is this growing a revolution? Are we about to turn a corner here?
I think so, Linda. You know, this did not start today or 2 years ago. It started with obviously the Alan Savory and some of his contemporaries, Luis Carlos Piñeiro there in South America. But there was really not much traction for many years for more than one reason. Only very, very good grazers were able to implement it. Now we have better communication through the media. We have more tools, better tools. We have better references, strong references in pretty much any climate. That's the beauty of it. If you go to the Amazonia, if you go to the deserts, if you go to the dry tropical forests, if you go to anywhere you go, forest, grasslands, there's someone already doing it, and that really build a lot of confidence. And then the knowledge that we have is much better than before. So I'm excited because I think this is trending upwards, and we actually need it. We need it big time, and we need to involve as many people as possible, as fast as possible. And I see a lot of excitement in young people. I mean, even city folks, young city folks are excited about getting back and helping, because they've been pressure a lot on all the problems that we're facing right now with all the environment issues we have right now. So this is really a great solution that can be done at large scale, better than other solutions.
Well, that just makes me smile. It gives me hope. I've got grandnieces and grandnephews who are going to profit from the work that you and so many of the people on this call are doing. So we're close to the end of our time. Alejandro, I wondered if you wanted to give us a few closing comments, and then we'll do a little bit of housekeeping and let people out for a break.
Yeah, actually, our main goal here as ranchers and trying to share the word is hope. Because I don't know if you know, but there was a poll among young people that they're hopeless. I mean, they think that this is going to end, and we do have a solution. We do have a solution, and it's not like something we're planning. It's something we're seeing that it does work, and it will benefit so many areas. I mean, as you said, right, like more clean, nutrient-dense foods, improving the wildlife, improving the life of the animals, communities, and so on. So I'm excited as well as to share this knowledge and to spread it across all people. I mean, consumers, corporations, and people on the land.
Well, that's the perfect closing. I can't thank you enough, Alejandro. So to help people get through the rest of the day here, if we didn't get to one of your questions, or if you have further questions for Alejandro or for the Soil for Water team, you can post additional questions in the topic areas of HUVA, or go to our forum at Soil for Water. We would love to see you there. And I've posted links to some of Alejandro's other work there with will you say it? It sounds so lyrical when you say it, Alejandro. Pastio, how do you say that? Pastio Culturas del. Say it.
That's right. That's right. No, pasticultores. Well, you know, we got a lot of people following us in Facebook. We usually put some updates or pictures. So, yeah, I think you're right.
You're kind. Thanks, Alejandro.
Thank you.